3, 2, 1. Ah, shit, fuck. We fucked it up. Welcome to Intuitive Defense.
Hello.
We're doing another React video. I'm Kennedy, and this is Baker. I don't think we actually introduced ourselves in the last episode.
We did not.
Nope. so I'm Kennedy, this is Baker. That's Kira. I don't know if you can see Kira. She's the range
Kira.
dog that doesn't like ranges. We're doing a React video to a new podcast I was put out by AI Norman. It's really funny, Austin comedian. I know, trust me, she's funny. Where they went over guns, and the title of it is "Guns Don't Kill People, People Kill People." So they're all three have very little experience with firearms.
I have not seen this entire episode. I've seen a few different bits of it.
I have seen the entire thing.
Yeah. So anything that they say that could be wrong or incorrect, or even when they say, oh, well, we don't really know, you can't really knock them too much. At least they're having this discussion. So we're not here to knock them. We're not here to do anything like that. Just give our 2 cents, eat some popcorn, drink some beer, pet the puppy. That's about it.
So give us a favor. Shit, I already fucked it up. Do us a favor and drop a like if you like it. Share with your buddies, maybe some of your buddies that are not really all that sure about guns, and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate you guys doing that. You got anything else to add?
I'm going to wait till you push play and then I'll pause it and add something.
Oh, okay. I forgot this. We were doing that. All right, fantastic. All right, and here we go.
Do you know who you're voting for this election?
Because I don't, and the election is around the corner, so it is time to figure it out.
This is the Are We Wrong podcast.
I'm AI Norman.
I'm Demi Chang, and we're comedians in Austin, Texas.
We've decided that we're the best people to help you figure out who you should vote for.
I think that might be a selling point rather than the actual truth.
We're still a few days out from the election.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that they're going to disclose who they're going to vote for before they talk about stuff. Should we disclose who we're going to vote for before we talk about stuff? That way we can take part in this, even though it's separate?
We can do that at the same time. 3, 2, 1. Nobody. Ah, shit.
Nobody, huh?
No.
Fair enough.
I couldn't give a fuck less about any of this retarded bullshit.
Jason Vest is here with us today. Jason, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
My name is Jason Vest. I'm a retired veteran. I spent 20 years in the military. I'm a professional content creator and stand-up comic, semi-professional stand-up comic.
I noticed that you say military, but don't mention the branch.
Well, I just be
Are
specific.
you like one of the bad ones?
No, I was in the bad one. I was in the National Guard.
That's one of the bad ones.
Whoa.
Oh, because National Guard's kind of the ones where you're like fake soldiers.
1 weekend a month.
Yeah.
2 weeks annually. I worked full-time for the National Guard. That was like my full-time job.
For anybody that doesn't know, Baker was also in the National Guard.
I was active before that.
Yeah, he was active before that, and he was a sergeant. Can you imagine this as a leadership, right?
You'd be so lucky.
What would you say to a guy that showed up to drill with hair like that?
Better than how I showed up. I was allowed to show up looking way more rough than that.
Dirtbag. Yeah. Okay, I got you. I remember that now.
Yep.
We won't go into that. That's for a whole other video.
National Guard full-time for 20 years.
Wait a minute.
Wait, but do you not say Army? Well, I guess because it's separate, but it's...
It's Army National Guard and there's the Air National
okay.
Guard.
Which
There's
one
two.
were you-
I was in the Army National Guard.
Okay.
I was a recruiter for the Army National Guard. That's what I did before.
I was in the
all-
Marine Corps, so it's all irrelevant.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, yeah. Thank y'all for your service.
What does Matt Best say? Thank, what was it?
Thank me for my service.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's like pointing a gun at somebody and said, "Hey, call me fucking awesome, god damn it."
I actually really wanted to go to basic training. I really wanted that. I think that would have helped me in my development as a person.
I think basic training is like the best thing like about the military.
Yes.
Could I still do that? Do you, when you start with the National Guard, do you start with 2 weekends a month in the, like how does it?
You join, and then you go to basic training, and then you.
Can you imagine basic training happening only at 2 weeks at a time?
That'd be interesting if it was.
I'm
I'm sure that they'd get a lot of people that would not show back up.
Whole lot of people just like, "Oh, I broke my toe. I can't go this time, guys.
Yeah.
I've got no gas in my car. Sorry."
Come back from basic
How
training.
long is basic training?
It is 9 weeks, and then depends on the skill that you get. Like I was a medical specialist, so mine was 17 weeks long, plus the 9 weeks training. Then you go home and you resume to your unit, and you just do your 1 weekend a month.
So
That's what
9
I
weeks
wanted to
and
do.
then 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. That sounds like a camp
48
getaway.
days a year.
That's what I tried to do, and then they got me.
It's a trap.
How young do you have to be in the National Guard?
You can be 17, and I think you can be, and don't quote me on this, I think they can waive up to 40 now.
So I have just enough time. Maybe I'll join.
I'd see
9
that
weeks? That's not, I've always wanted to do basic training. Maybe this is one of those better late than never
Yeah,
things.
you'll get so much.
You know, we could run Norman through basic training. We could totally put her through a fucking boot camp out here.
No, we got the range, we got the property,
Yep. Lots
we
of
got
places.
rain.
Lots of places to get
Mud.
muddy. Lots of places to get wet. Lots of places to do a whole bunch of running and jumping jacks and shit, which of course we wouldn't do.
Why would we do that?
Fuck.
We've already done that.
Yeah, exactly.
The guard
That's
is
what I'm
probably
thinking.
the best
And
way
I'm
to do
trying
it.
to get buff right now. Should I
There's
do
a
it?
lot of lesbians.
Hot.
And a lot of
But you're not going to get buff in basic training.
Well,
It's
you're-
I was
skinny.
gonna say I'm
You're in a
straight.
relationship.
What am I? Yeah, I'm taken.
You're in a, well, I just think it's the don't ask, don't tell thing was a whole.
So hot. I wish we were still in those times.
Hey,
phone
that's
ring, dude.
cool.
That's not rude.
I would much rather be single in the don't ask, don't tell times. Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah, but when I was in going through training, we had like bunk beds, racks, and like every rack had at least one lesbian.
Did you say that every lesbian had one rack?
every rack had a lesbian.
My bad, I heard that back.
You just fucking switch the shit up in your head again.
Drove these 2 girls down to enlist, and they were like, hey. And I'm like, do you have any kind of piercings in? Because you have to ask, like, anything. And they're like, you
clit count?
got to pull over. You got to pull over at a rest area. And like the girl couldn't get it out, and she's like, yeah, I had to help her get it out. And I'm like, that's so hot.
That's why you don't put piercings in with nail guns.
That's right.
Her clit right now.
The military is gonna check your clit for piercings.
You can't have any kind of piercing. So
Metal
dudes can't.
detector, or?
Prince Albert, none of that.
But I mean, is someone gonna look?
Yeah, do they check?
They popped the hood when you joined. Didn't they like see you're a girl?
No, but when you do P tests, they do watch the urine leave the body. But I think you
Ooh,
could have
this is
hid.
my-
I mean, I got a tattoo removed to join, but I have a friend who he had a lip tattoo, and he cut it out of his own lip before he went to boot or OCS.
I was a little disappointed when I joined because I don't think they looked at my butt. And I put some trinkets in there for them to find.
What'd you put in there?
I can show you after this. They're still up there. I used a nail gun to put them in.
You just said not to use nail guns anywhere near your fucking
No, for
genitalia.
piercings. That wasn't a piercing. That was a
You're
trinket
just delivery
Yeah,
system.
Exactly.
I got you.
Okay, he didn't get that far to realizing how
Yeah,
much
would
he
they
was gonna
have
have to
checked?
cut off his
What?
body.
I don't know if they would have found that.
You get completely naked when you join. So that was what I retired as. I worked at the MEPS. That was my job.
Duck walk.
Mm-hmm. So you're gonna do a duck walk.
I didn't get naked. I did the duck walk in my underwear. I leaned over for the doc to look at my butthole.
Yeah. I remember standing on a line, like a tape line or painted line on the ground, with other dudes,
Yeah.
and we all had our tallywhackers out.
Really?
Yeah, but again, I don't remember if that was basic. Maybe we had some.
That wasn't basic, dude.
Some interesting drill sergeants. Yeah, but our basics were different.
What? No. They didn't make you pull your dick out in basic training. That's stupid. Because that's what MEPS is for. Or unless you went to the fucking medic.
Yeah, but again, I don't remember if it was MEPS or basic. But I did have my dick out a lot during basic, and other dudes did too. But you had girls in yours, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See,
We had a co-ed platoon.
yeah, ours was just ding dongs.
They're gonna make sure you're a dude or a girl. They're gonna look at your butthole. Don't you remember
To see if
spreading your
it's
They
cheeks?
didn't look at my butthole.
They looked at your butthole, didn't they?
Who did he point at, and why was he so confident that that person off camera had somebody peeping in their butthole? What was that all about?
The other guy, the producer, the guy that runs all the buttons and shit like that, he was also prime military.
Oh, okay. All right, well, he was just so matter of fact about it.
It was-
Yeah, they
it-
started in your butthole, right?
I think we're determining, like, a theme for this guy.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that was his job. So, you don't make fun of a mechanic for working on engines.
I mean, I do.
You don't make fun of a doctor for staring at buttholes.
I also do.
Stare at
Make-
buttholes?
Make fun of them.
Oh,
Can women not get hemorrhoids?
I think we can.
I'm wondering why they're looking
Wait,
at
I don't think anyone looked.
The hemorrhoid ceiling. You just
I don't think anyone looked at my butthole.
I hope not. You guys are dissuading me from joining the National Guard with all this butthole checking.
They didn't check
and
my
I
lady
and peeing.
butthole.
Do I need to be off of drugs for?
Oh, yeah.
Like no weed for?
No weed.
Yeah.
But what about for the rest of my life? Do they drug test me or?
Okay.
Well, here's the trick. You have to say, I tried weed one time on this date for experimental use only. I had to have that waiver.
I feel like you're setting me up here. Lead me to believe this was all about guns.
Mm-hmm.
The last however many minutes we've been talking about buttholes.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been Rick Rossed.
Rick rolled.
Him too.
No, they eventually get the guns.
We'll see.
Do you trust me?
Nope, not at all.
Come on. Hand in hand. At least you didn't lick that one.
I went all the way to MEPS, did the thing, and then I was scared they're gonna do the hair test, which they don't do, and then I freaked out and I told the truth. This is always the
You guys had bad recruiters. I would tell these kids to lie through their. I'd be like, you didn't get arrested. You didn't smoke marijuana 1,000 times. You've never taken Adderall. I was the shady.
I didn't have sex with you.
Shouldn't have been in. Like, I was the guy they called, hey, I got this guy. I was that guy.
All right. Well, hey, what topic are we doing here today? Guns.
Guns.
We're doing guns. The rights to bear. Second Amendment. I think it's an issue that's still relevant. I mean, it's so crazy because just a couple years ago, we were always going gun control laws. Well, all the kids are dying, and now I feel like we're just too busy with a bunch of other. People are still killing each other.
Busy with the trans stuff.
Busy with trans. And we've got these wars that are crazy everywhere. Like, there's just, I think everyone's kind of lost interest in the kids dying in schools.
We don't have time. We don't have time for the guns. We had to throw away our Ukraine flags and our gun worries, and we had to replace it with the new hot button issues.
Right, but I guess it's still an issue because I do hear that still every now and then that like.
This is also how you know that they don't have anything to do with guns. They think the gun topic has suddenly stopped becoming an issue.
Definitely has not. If anything, there's way more talk going on about it right now.
Yep.
Because the Biden-Harris administration has been very vocal about banning assault weapons.
Being retarded.
Yeah, all sorts of other silly things. So it's very much a current discussion. That being said, I think we notice it more because we're in that space.
Yep.
I'm sure they know a lot more about entertainment news. And so I think it's just source of information and where you operate. So it's absolutely still a very relevant topic.
Kamala's going to take our guns. I've heard
But
that.
she's got a big old Glock.
But she's now like, I like
I mean,
guns.
she's pretty open about it. She's been one of the first, I think, left candidates ever that's been like, I own a gun. And Waltz, you see him kind of look like.
I knew you would have a problem with this.
I am very curious to explore her statement on her owning a gun. She may own a gun. She may own several guns. Who knows?
Yep.
I'm curious to know what make, model, caliber Glock it is.
I'm curious to know if she knows what make, model, caliber.
Yeah. Or does she just say Glock because everybody knows what a Glock is and it's just easier to say?
She calls it a Glock, but it's actually a CZ or a fucking
Yeah.
Beretta or something.
Use Glock as a generic term. But if she does own a
train?
firearm, does she train? When was the last time she shot it? Is she proficient with it? Is she safe with it? This and that. Now, something else that I find entertaining is when she was on the Oprah show, and she said that if somebody breaks into my house, they get shot. I absolutely believe that. Mm-hmm. But it won't be by her.
It won't be by her.
It'll be by her protective detail, the Secret Service.
Well, her and her husband are sitting in the corner, both dressed in pretty pink nighties, just screaming their fucking heads off.
Yeah. Now, if somebody breaks into our house, we're responsible for our house independently. My house, your house.
Yeah.
Separate locations, independent home. If somebody breaks into my house or your house or anybody else's house around here that doesn't have that luxury, their personal security is on them. And, nobody questioned her on that.
Nope.
She was just so matter of fact of if somebody sneaked by her entire security detail, she was just going to go ahead and shoot them. She's Channing Tatum in that White House Down movie or...
Everybody get down! Get down!
Magic Mike and the White House or something like that. I don't know. I have no idea what it was a dumb movie. And I'm guessing he's getting ready to talk about Tim Waltz going hunting. If he hasn't gone hunting in a while, if he hasn't used that firearm in a while, I too have to familiarize myself with certain firearms. And there's a chance I would look goofy as shit too. Or was he just doing it to try and appease gun owners and, hey, look at me, I'm a gun guy too. And had never picked it up. It's not even his. No idea.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. Just, questions I have.
A little staged, but you see, he's like, I'm
He's
a
afraid of
hunter.
her. Yeah.
I think it's funny how everybody in politics now is a hunter. Like Kamala's like, I got a Glock, and then Trump.
To be fair, most politicians have been hunters for a very long time. Hunting
Prostitutes,
and other things.
heroin.
So is she gonna have a gun on her? I love the idea of that. Like, okay, I want my Secret Service, but I also have my Glock. So
She doesn't have her
fuck
clock.
me. Well, I want her to, but okay. So let's say, just in terms of gun control, gun legislation, gun rights, which candidate do we think we will most align with? Hold up your answers now. Okay, 2 Kamala, 1 Trump.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I had it wrong. Trump.
Got him.
Got him!
I want some kind of gun control if anything makes sense, but I don't know what makes sense. Because every time I hear the liberals go, hey, we had another school shooting, what if we got rid
So what doesn't make sense is gun control. That term says everything you need to know. Controlling your rights based on safety, the illusion of safety, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
That would almost be like speech control. We have to protect people from their First Amendment right, and so now we're going to implement speech control.
Yep.
Gun control, nothing about that makes sense.
of bump stocks, or what if we got rid of AR-15, or what if we get rid of a semi-automatic? I don't know all the terms, obviously. But there's always something that they go, this is a common sense thing. And then I listen to a Republican type podcast and they're like, well, this is all the reasons why that wouldn't help anything anyway. And so I'm like, does anyone, if the Democrats have any good ideas to try to clean up, especially all the illegal guns, the unregistered guns in the dangerous parts of the country or something.
Yeah.
Dangerous parts of the country kind of sounds like the dangerous part of a city.
You don't have any registered guns, do you?
I don't have
No, because
any registered guns.
That's stupid. But yeah, you're just a puppy, but registration for guns is dumb.
I kind of want to understand it better because we were talking a little about like before we started recording and when you talk about common sense gun control and all this stuff, and it might be common sense to one person, but then like my friend who's even more conservative would say like, don't even start talking like that, it's a slippery slope, and that's how you end up with
I think
blah, blah,
some
blah.
people get hypersensitive to it because they think that their right is being taken away. So like, hey, my right to bear arms in the Constitution. They hear that, right to bear arms, it's my right.
We don't like losing stuff.
No, nobody likes losing. So when you start telling people they're going to take your guns and they're going to, these are my rights. But it's like, I don't think anybody's ever tried to once take the gun.
Maybe, the road, and I probably should listen to him a little bit more, but the road that he's going down, sure. The government hasn't gone door to door to take your guns, but there have been times where a government didn't necessarily take people's guns, but significantly reduced their ability to exercise their right during a time of disaster because
AKA
of everybody's safety.
Katrina.
Yeah. So they may not be going door to door taking your guns, but they are doing what they can to limit your access to guns or to prevent you from owning guns, or even creating a law that, you can no longer own this gun, therefore now you have to surrender it to the government. Just like the whole brace rule that the ATF implemented. That was depriving people of their property without any type of compensation. Based
Whenever
on
they bought it, it was originally totally legal, and then they assign a piece of paper and make it illegal overnight.
bureaucrats.
As an organization that is not held accountable to the public, they are hired by politicians to do something. And so you're supposed to just vote out the politician that hires them to do that thing. But if you vote out the politician that hired the people for the ATF, the people in the ATF he hired don't go away.
Exactly. By them enacting this rule, which is how they got around that. It wasn't a law because it wasn't done by Congress. It was a rule implemented by a federal agency. They changed terminologies and things like that even for 10 plus years. Like you said, it was completely legal to own. Then all of a sudden they changed their minds. And then they enact this rule, and if you had a firearm that met this criteria, that also had this accessory, which is what a pistol brace is, then all of a sudden you are forced to surrender this property without any type of compensation.
You had to wait for another person's approval
Yeah,
for you to use a piece of plastic that was at one point in time totally legal.
exactly.
And then somebody signed something and made it illegal overnight.
But when you did register your pistol as an SBR, there is a possibility that someone within the ATF could say, nah, denied. And now you're just screwed. They may not be coming to your house door to door, but they're doing it either through rules or legislative action. That we just lost power. Hi.
We're back. You might have saw that the screen went black. All lights went out.
Yeah. ATF cut the power.
They heard us talking about all kinds of cool stuff about guns and stuff, and they were like, "Fuck them bitches."
Start the second part, the same way we started the first part.
Yeah.
By popping the tops.
Let's do. Yeah. Pork sliders, breakfast pizza.
Yeah, with the pickles. And peppers. I have a pepper over here if you want one.
No. There's no need to show me.
Oh, I'm going to show you. Just like when we go to the bathroom, I'm like, hey, look at this. My morning pepper.
That's not a jalapeno, folks. That's a habanero or something.
No, this is just cayenne. Without further ado.
Yeah. Back at it.
I did see the phrase mandatory gun buyback in a Kamala related thing somewhere. So that's when I was like, what is this mandatory? Because that was like, she said, we're not taking your guns. No one's taking your guns. And then I saw something the next day where someone was fact checking and they showed like a little blurb that was like, oh yeah, well, Kamala supports, or at least at one time supported a mandatory. What are these mandatory buybacks? Do you know?
I think it's probably when you peel down the mandatory buyback, it's more in like areas where there's a lot of illegal guns and they're buying back guns that shouldn't be on the street. I don't think they're buying guns. I don't think that
Registered
unregistered,
people,
serial numbers filed off. When I hear that, that's what I think.
Buybacks, I think, are absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
Because where does the money come for those buybacks?
The government.
Who funds the government?
We do.
So technically, if they do a forced buyback or an optional buyback or whatever silly program
Which, make no mistake, mandatory means the same thing as forced.
yes. They might give you $125 for a $1,500 rifle or...
Or them go as high as $250.
But guess who's not participating in the buyback?
Criminals.
The people who are committing the crimes are not participating in this buyback, but the people who are not committing the crimes are freely giving up their firearms for a small portion of money, thinking that they're actually helping the problem. That's like me saying, you know what? I'm giving up my vehicle. That way drunk drivers, they stop being drunk drivers.
Right. If you're a criminal and you rely on a gun for you to continue being criminal, is a $250 gift card going to equal the amount of money that you could make while using the firearm illegally, either to protect yourself or to hurt others in the course of you committing those crimes? Not to mention, is $250 going to be enough for a criminal to say, I'll give you this gun and totally leave myself open to the violent acts committed by other criminals who don't turn their guns in? So gun buybacks are retarded. They'll never ever work. And the only thing they will do is to voluntarily disarm law-abiding citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Guns that shouldn't be on the street, those are the ones they're getting, and that's what I support.
That sounds good.
What's the rate for the buyback? Like, what if you just like
do you get your money
end
back?
up doing gun arbitrage and you're just buying illegal guns and
Filing
be like,
on.
come and get it.
Right.
Make a rain.
Make a profit.
Come and take it for a price.
I don't think anybody's real. I don't think those programs are massively successful because, I mean, if I'm a criminal and I have a gun that I don't want someone to know about, the last thing I'm going to do is take that gun to the police.
Right. And it can't be
you heard what you
mandatory.
said.
I think you did.
You just
I
have
think
to
he's
go and
responding.
volunteer it.
Copycat.
Like,
What do you guys think of the phrase, guns don't kill people? Or wait, some people think guns kill people.
Guns
And,
kill
like,
people. People don't kill people.
But
Is it
people
the
kill
guns?
people.
Well, it is harder if you have a knife to kill as many people as when you have a gun. And so we do see that our numbers in these incidents are higher than countries without guns.
They're coming for us.
Yeah.
That's it. We're talking about.
We shouldn't have talked about this.
We're going to knock out your power.
SWAT and say,
Should be nuts.
It's crazy how people call the SWAT team on people. That's
Can you
insane.
specifically call the SWAT team versus the cops and then they choose to send the SWAT
Yeah.
team? Yeah.
It's called swatting.
You can kill more people faster with a gun
Yeah.
if you're a decent aim and you don't lose it in the moment. It is kind of amazing. A lot of people have made jokes about this, about how like the numbers are actually like weirdly low for how many people you're getting with when some of these people have all kinds of guns and you think they could kill more kids. I do think that even with a kind of fucked up kid, like there's still some amount of like it's kind of hard.
Yeah, they don't realize there's a recoil.
And a recoil, but also just the whole like the adrenaline, the oh my God, I'm doing this. Like it's probably not that easy for these kids to be like cold, calm, and composed and be like, kick,
It's
kick,
not.
kick, kick, kick.
I mean, you look at like back in the day, like you talk to my grandpa used to tell me they taught how to shoot a gun in school. That was part of curriculum.
The idea that guns kill people, people don't kill people, or reduced down to guns kill people, is laying the blame on an inanimate object for what a live person does whenever they pick up said inanimate object. If you were to leave a gun on a table unattended for 1,000,000 years, it would never go off. A living being has to pick up the firearm with intent or by accident and cause that thing to go off. So therefore, getting rid of guns is not the problem. We need to address the reason why people pick up a gun.
We don't have a gun problem, we have a shitty people problem. And something shifted in our society that has now led people to want to go out there and commit these horrendous acts of violence against other people. Is it violent movies? Is it violent video games? Is it the over-medication of children that has caused them to not be able to regulate their body, to regulate their own dopamine and everything else, that they need some type of magic pill to make them happy? What's going on? There's something in the background. And I would also attribute that to news, social media, where if you go out and you commit one of these acts of violence, what happens? Your name is plastered in the media for days, weeks, months, depending on what it is. And then other people who feel that they're never going to amount to anything in their life, they want to be known for something now. Well, I'm going to go do what this guy did, and then I'll be famous.
Well, also, if you have a person go into a school and shoot up the place, and then one group says, that's terrible, and then the opposer group says, yeah, but their life is bad, and their pastor did this, and their parents did this, and it's not their fault, they're a victim. Becoming a victim nowadays has a great deal of social credit to it. So if you go out and you commit something horrible, and then you are guaranteed to have someone, somewhere, somehow say that it's not your fault, yes, you're a victim, and that we will help you out. And it will give you hugs, and regardless of how horrific of a person you are, someone will find a way to defend you. And some people just desperately want to be defended.
You can take all the guns away. If there's a shift in society where shitty people want to do shitty things to other people, they will find a way to do it. You take all the guns away, you will see stabbings go up. You'll see blunt object attacks go up. You'll see all these other attacks because nothing's shifted in society. You still have the root cause of the shitty people doing shitty things. Now all you've done is given them a different method to do things.
Last final bit before we start again. If you take guns away, them being the most effective way to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time, you cannot take them away just from the bad guys. If it's a blanket gun buyback, mandatory, voluntary, whatever, where the government runs around to houses and seizes guns, you will also be depriving an individual that has done nothing wrong from their ability to use overwhelming force against somebody attacking them in a defensive manner.
There are an estimated 400 plus million firearms just in the US. If guns were truly the problem, every American, because there's like maybe 365 million within the population, give or take. If guns were truly the problem, every American would be dead some twice.
Yeah.
If you are a small frame female and somebody, a 6'5", 300-pound guy kicks in your door in the middle of the night and he enters your room and you're a small frame female by yourself, but you have even just a 5-shot revolver, that is a force multiplier. You stand a very good chance of surviving that encounter, both physically and possibly mentally. So you infringe on their ability to do that. But guess who's still going to have guns?
Bad guys.
The criminals, because they don't give a shit about the law. The good people won't, because they abide by the law. The criminals will still find a way to get gun. And then your alpha predator maintains the ability to be an alpha predator. There's a reason why you don't see the lion attack the fastest, strongest gazelle.
Right.
Because they have a much lower probability of success. They go after the weak gazelle. Same thing with criminals. They go after the people who they don't think have the ability or the capability to resist their attack. So if you take away firearms, that gives them a much higher chance of survival.
So if you take away guns, aren't you causing women to be in a more unsafe environment?
You would think so.
It's wild how somebody would actually advocate for the taking away of firearms whenever a firearm, being a force multiplier, allows a smaller, weaker person to defend against a larger, stronger, more well-trained attack. That's kind of self-defeating, doesn't it?
Yep.
That's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Why would anybody do that? That's crazy.
For a moral cause. Look how good of a person I am. I'm surrendering my rights and my ability to protect myself.
I had a guy tell me one time on the internet, because that's a bastion of goodwill and comprehensive conversation, that if I cared for my own safety above the safety of everyone else in society, I'm being selfish. He was Canadian too.
Oh, did he apologize after saying that?
No.
Sorry.
No. He was very nice to me while he was telling me the stupid things.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of what he was.
Typical Canadian. Probably all loopy on that maple syrup sauce. Just got done chugging a gallon of it. And for clarification though, it's not just women who are, you also have smaller frame men, or you have people with disabilities.
I'm 5'4" and retarded.
So if you are a person, let's say you're a double amputee, and somebody kicks in your door. No.
You're going to be very upset that they can kick anything and you can't.
Yeah, you're going to be jelly right on it.
What do? You can't rely on the cops for everything.
Nope.
Because cops are reactive versus proactive. At least a vast majority of them. You just give up your gun hoping that bad things won't happen to you?
Fingers crossed.
That doesn't.
The government said they're going to protect me.
Then again, you will feel very good about yourself.
Like in the olden times, and we got so far away from that. So now some people, if they see a gun, they freak out.
Yeah.
Like if my wife sees a gun, she is freaking out. Won't even hold one.
Yeah.
I tried to get her to go shooting one time with a friend of mine. My wife, she was visibly crying. She was like, no.
Yeah, I have a film. I've been doing like some film stuff around Austin. I don't know if I don't know if she'll see this. But yeah, she's very sensitive about it. And we were showing a film where someone had guns in the film. And then she was like, she told her partner, can you get the kids out of here? I don't want them to see the GUNS. And like, say the word. And then in the film, we had a firearm. And she wanted to spray paint like this little pink squirt gun. And then someone else ended up, he was like, no. He brought in his actual gun and like gave a safety brief and made sure it was, was acting as the armor and everything.
Not uncommon for people who are unfamiliar with firearms to be absolutely terrified of firearms.
Yep.
Mystery surrounding this object is terrifying to a lot of people. But what I've found, my experience, people who are unfamiliar with firearms, who are absolutely terrified with them, and she just kind of said it, once you give them a safety briefing, you break it all down, you show them what it's like, you get them to shoot a firearm in a caliber that they're going to be comfortable with, and then they learn that firearm, they train on it, and then at the end of it, they're like, oh, this isn't bad at all. And then their perspective completely changes.
Once you take the mystery from an object away and you're able to look at it at its component parts and figure out how they work, all of a sudden a lot of that fear and anxiety goes away. Once you're able to get over the fear and anxiety, you're able to realize, okay, this is just simply a machine. It's a tool that has very particular function.
Kind of like if you drive a small Honda Accord and that's what you're used to, and then somebody's like, hey, you should drive this
tank
double trailer 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
Have fun. You're going to be a little bit
anxious.
I don't know if I should do this. It's kind of the same thing with guns and other objects that you're not familiar with.
To me, because when I was a kid, I feel like that the public education system did instill in me this idea of guns bad. And I mean, I'm from Houston, so definitely in the city and
H-Town.
And it was kind of the same way that we were just kind of given Martin Luther King's vision of the world. And we just were all like, hey, that's what we all do. Racism's stupid, that was kind of also the message, like guns bad. And so, and maybe, it just all depends, right? Because in the city, guns are dangerous. In the country, you need them because of not just hunting, but like if someone's at your property, if there's a coyote or something, the cops aren't going to be able to make it in time, and you have to have guns in the country.
It's interesting how she made the distinction of guns are more dangerous in the city than they are in the country.
Well, they're more needed in the country than they are in the city.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Which, I live in the country.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree.
But you've also lived in a city.
I've lived in lots of cities. Atlanta, St. Louis, Chicago. I've lived in a lot of cities. And so it is useful. And to her credit, like she said, we're out here in the country. So if a guy, I shouldn't just limit it to a guy.
You should.
If a person
That's sexist.
decides that they want to break into my house and do horrible things to me and my family in the middle of the night, I call the police. They're not going to be here for a long time. So then I need to be able to take care of myself. So guns are very beneficial for people living in rural or country environments. That being said, I would also say that they are just as important living in the city. So you live in the Bronx and you're in a taller building towards the top of the structure, and somebody kicks in your door and you call the police, they're not just gonna, we're here.
Yeah.
So you have a much larger population where things can happen very quickly. So it would be just as beneficial for a person living in a large city to have that same means of protection as an individual living out in the country.
And nobody's going to sit there and mandate, at least I hope they wouldn't, that you have to allow another person to use force against you because of actions that have happened against a totally unrelated group of people.
In theory, in the city, if you're out on the street and you get mugged, in theory, you should have a higher probability of other people helping. But unfortunately, what we've seen is far less of that is happening. Sure, people break out their phones, which later on could be used in some type of criminal proceeding, assuming that you survive the encounter. But now people are a little bit more hesitant because a lot of people have been prosecuted for stepping in and stopping a threat.
Oh, yeah.
And so people don't want to take that responsibility. I don't blame them. They don't want to take that responsibility or even that burden of me trying to help somebody.
It boils down to how much faith do you have that the vast majority of the time a person completely unrelated and unknown to you will step in to help you. How confident are you in thinking that this will happen as opposed to it more than likely won't happen? I'm not confident in it at all. I don't want to rely on another person making a good decision that benefits me. I want to have a piece of equipment and know how to use it to such a degree where I need outside help less than the average person.
And also, to be fair, if you just stumble upon an attack, you may not know who the aggressor is. And so if you act on that, thinking, oh, well, this person's smaller, they must be the person being attacked, and then you stop the threat and then come to find out the smaller person was, in fact, the aggressor, and you killed or injured the victim, you're going to probably get hemmed up on that.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder, but it does feel like one of those liberal indoctrination things a little bit, but maybe that was the vibe, much as they are teaching a lot of kids now about the genderbread person or whatever. Now, well, we'll get to that some other time.
Wait, did you say gingerbread or
The genderbread.
Genderbread. I'm like,
Genderbread. It's a whole thing. But now at least when I was growing up, they did teach us like guns bad, scary. Even if you have a gun, you're probably it's like how trans kids are probably gonna off themselves. They're like, if you have a gun in the house, you are more likely than drowning in a pool. You're probably gonna get it, even if it's in a safe, what if there's a bullet in it? Like there was a lot of fear of, if there is a gun in the house, you are not safe.
That kind of attitude comes from looking at statistics. Statistics is about analyzing a large set of information by running it against some sort of other known baseline, right? So firearms death versus non-firearm death. You're more likely to kill yourself if you have a loaded firearm in the home. That only happens if you're of the mentality to kill yourself with the loaded firearm. I'm not, right? If you have a pool, you're more likely to drown. Well, now you know how to swim. So know how to use these things that are in your home rather than being continually afraid of the things you don't know how to use.
Yeah, there's no context. It's just, if you have this will happen.
Yeah.
It's not like your pistol's sitting in the safe or the nightstand of, hey, use me to unalive yourself. Hey.
Well, I kind of follow that rule for other reasons. I do not own a firearm. I have tried to joke about this. It's pretty dark, but I don't trust myself. Because there's been times where, you drink and then you're just like, I don't want to be here anymore. And so I was going to ask about the delay thing, because sometimes people say, well, there should be a delay. You shouldn't be able to be like,
I wonder if she meant I don't want to be here anymore, as in I'm at this party that I'm drinking and I don't want to be here anymore, or more existential, I don't want to be here anymore.
Like, oh, you know what? Yeah.
It's tax day is tomorrow. Well, I don't want to go through that.
There's obviously a comfort issue with her owning a firearm. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you as an individual, because that's your right, if you choose to exercise your right, that's on you. If you choose not to exercise your right because of whatever comfort issue, that's also on you. It's not like you're being forced to do it. So
And more than likely, she would feel totally different if she went through, say, an extended weekend training session at some sort of firearms location.
Or this one.
Yeah,
Oh, you were talking about that.
with two incredibly, mildly, borderline handsome firearms instructors.
Oh, you were talking about
Yeah. That's why I said borderline.
Jesus, we need note cards.
It depends on the time of day.
Level of inebriation.
And the level of inebriation. The attitude could very well change.
Yeah.
Imagine whenever you first started driving, how nervous you were getting onto the road.
But yeah, feel free to come on out. We have like 3-week-old sliders. You'll love it.
We've got breakfast pizza out the wazoo.
Probably in about an hour and a half we'll be coming out the wall.
It'd be going quickly out of the wazoo.
I'm in a bad mood. I'm gonna go buy one.
I agree. I don't
Yeah.
think there being a waiting period. I don't think that there's a problem with a mental health check. I think the gun problem, especially pertaining to the school shooting, is a deeper issue of a mental health crisis. It is. These kids are afraid to talk about whatever they want to talk about. That's why they've got all this pent-up anger and they go shoot up a school.
And they need to be having more interactions in person and less on TikTok. We've been medicating now for 20, 30 years. We've been extremely over medicating all these kids, especially the boys. Just the amounts of Ritalin and Adderall alone, much less they're putting 7-year-olds on Prozac and stuff now. I mean, and Lexapro. I mean, it's crazy.
I will absolutely agree with her statement there. People, young children, teenagers, adults, especially if they've been medicated their entire life, they cannot deal with their own problems unless they have this magic little happy pill that doesn't even fix the problem. It just puts a Band-Aid over it. Mm-hmm. And then that's one of the issues why people just all of a sudden snap, is because it's all built up. They didn't have the ability to problem solve and deal with their problems because some medication, or somebody said, it's not your fault. Mm-hmm. You just need more medication.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I guess I'm lucky that I wasn't medicated as a child. They just let me do my own thing, and then I would show up a few months later, mm-hmm. long hair, mm-hmm. looking like a potato.
Knowing how to talk to dogs.
Yep. And I'm good to go now. Yeah. I solve all my own problems.
The other aspect of it is if you have ADD, ADHD, something other than severe depression, and you medicate your way through it as opposed to dealing with the root causes of the thing, what happens whenever you lose your job? What happens whenever you go through a financial hardship? All of a sudden, you no longer have access to this thing that is helping you deal with this other thing. Suddenly, not being able to deal with it through the use of medication could induce a great deal more stress upon a person than they were used to begin with. They didn't develop the coping skills necessary to deal with that problem without the medication or without the therapy or without anything else.
Yeah.
That could induce a great deal of stress upon a person. And I don't know if you know this, people under stress do insane things. They do crazy things that don't make sense to anyone but them and only them at that very short particular time frame. You ever done something that you don't know why you did it? Imagine if that thing was shooting up a school full of kids. So you can't always get an answer for why people do things. Yeah. Sometimes people just do crazy shit.
What you have to look at is, did that kid stop taking his pills 2 weeks before the incident? And because that's like, you got all this stuff, and then that's when a lot of this stuff happens. And I can't remember because I got into some kind of Instagram fight, but I forget what the incident was even about. But that's the point that I was making, is like, yes, it's not just about what drugs they're on. It's about what drugs they were on that they're now in withdrawal from because you gave them those in the first place. That's now led to this like crazy serotonin, depression or whatever. And now.
Did I mention I watched this entire thing before?
Like the parents, there's a case going on in Michigan right now where a young man went and shot up a school in Rochester Hills, Michigan. killed a bunch of people, and the parents got prosecuted as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were the ones that provided the firearm. Yeah. And if you look at the whole, and I think a lot of times everybody goes after the parents, everybody goes after the people that own the gun, but they don't ever go after the school. A lot of times when you start peeling back these school shootings, they could have been prevented. This one in Rochester Hills, the kid had a story that he had wrote about killing people. It made its way to the school. The parents got called in, and the parents go, boys will be boys, keep him in school. They should have sent that kid home. They didn't send that kid home that day, and he went out and shot up.
Well, did
Usually
he
a
seem
warning.
weird?
What?
Did he seem weird too?
They're all the same. At least the school shooters are all the same profile. I mean, I was that emo goth kid in school.
I don't know if you can say did that kid seem weird? Because every kid is weird.
Bizarre as fuck.
Sure, maybe some are weirder than others, but every kid. It's like old people. Really old people are weird as hell too.
What?
I know.
I'm getting old. There's no way I'm weird.
No, you've just been weird your entire life.
Good point.
That guy,
Right,
but
but
I was a school shooter all
You used it
day.
productively.
Yeah.
But a bit of a weirdo kid. I think the weirdo kid plus, because I mean, not that I wasn't a little bit weird in school, but I don't think I came off, and I'm a female, so it does change things. But I drew a cartoon when I was in high school, like a junior in high school. There was a cartoon, and it was about like a former high school student shooting a teacher that we all had. But it was like a joke, because I had started drawing these little funny cartoons, and the teachers were kind of aware. Sometimes I would draw something on the board. No, I know, but it was in my notebook, and it wasn't really supposed to be something that someone saw, but I had drawn it for myself
Right
on a
next to your
day.
manifesto.
I was particularly mad at this, but I would never, kill anyone, but I was just particularly mad, and I was upset at this obnoxious teacher, and just drew this little joke. And fortunately, people are kind of squirrel-like looking, and like the way I draw is so silly that it's not like this was like a
Was it your potato
lifelike
people?
kind of potato people, pre-potato people, but kind
Okay.
of that.
That's your
And so.
signature.
But it was just, there was this teacher who made us turn in our notebooks twice a year or something, just with everything. And so it had all the regular like school stuff, but then it also, in the middle, there's just these doodles, because I wasn't ever thinking
man.
anyway, so they found that, the teacher found it, and it was the whole to-do with the, principal, whatever. But they didn't, suspend me. I think they gave me some Saturday school a couple of days, and they, my parents came in and talked. And of course, it's like that conversation
was that?
between
No.
the parents, and that this is serious, like we're supposed to technically suspend you, whatever, you drew this thing, and but because I'm female, because I'm a European heritage person, because my parents advocated, because I never had any, and because I'm an AP student, all that kind of stuff, then you go, all right, she's not really, I've never held it, I was so whatever gun. But if it's a weirdo guy who's like kind of an incel vibe,
But it's hard, because sometimes those things happen, and then they're like, okay, we forgive you. But then something does happen, and then they look back, oh yeah, we did confiscate that notebook.
This story in Rochester Hills, the kid was killing animals.
Well,
like they
that's
were
okay.
doing all
That's
this
different.
stuff.
That's literally, yeah.
We know about the dark tribe.
All right.
Yeah, it was killing animals. And what was one of the other ones? His mom, after his parents showed up to the school, got him out of hock with the school, and he was released back to class. She sent him a text message, "Don't get caught next time." And seconds later, that young man went and
That
unleashed some
mom
terror.
deserves to. Probably.
They do, but I just think like a lot of the school shooting issues, it's so bigger than just the gun is the vehicle.
What do you
That's- what's
Yeah.
the problem? That's not the problem.
Yeah, there are a lot of other issues. I do think desensitization to violence is happening, and it's not to blame. Like when people are like, oh, it's because of the video games. But it does kind of surprise me sometimes what we feel desensitized to the more you see it. And like,
I don't think it's the video games.
I don't think it is, but it makes it bridges the gap. I don't think there's a direct correlation, but sometimes, I don't know. They made fun of me the first episode because I was saying like, oh, I was surprised there's sex in Bridgerton, and they're like, that wasn't even that sexual. But just what kids are exposed to, and like that mom I talked about where she's like, don't let the kids see the GUNS. But if you turn on anything, you see people's heads being blown off.
Especially this time of year. Gun,
Yeah.
Ukraine, Iran, Israel.
Oh, I thought you meant because Halloween. Because I went through a haunted house, my first haunted house the other day, and it was very gory, and people had brought their kids, and I know a lot of kids like that stuff. But it was so gory, and you're like, oh, I can kind of tell like it's fake, so it's not that bad. But if you're just seeing that all the time, like, oh yeah, this person was disemboweled, that person's headless, that person's hanging, that person's whatever.
And you can find all those videos, like of the Columbine shooting, you can find the unedited you can find the unedited cam footage from like you can hear them laughing. It's fucked up. It is. I had to see it.
Where is it? We talked about how do you get to the dark web.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I don't know how to get to the dark web, but did you see that movie Elephant that MTV made about it was basically just a a narrative, like look at that, like a fictionalized account, but it seemed pretty true to basically the whole Columbine story. I mean, I could be wrong.
How many years of using a microphone do you have to have before you automatically move the microphone so it stays the same distance away from your mouth, no matter what position your head is in?
Mm-hmm. Whereas if it was you doing that, you'd be trying to swallow it like a corn dog.
I mean, just kind of tapping it all over the face, as you do.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
yeah. Would you fuck me? Oh, fuck me.
About how true, whatever. But that was the idea, that it was basically that. And it was one of the most haunting. First of all, they're playing Moonlight Sonata like the entire time that they're shooting. And then like at the end, there's just these moments. Anyway, but it was.
I'm now not going to be able to not notice just how still that microphone is and the level of perfection. So that it picks up what you're saying, but not so close that you're biting it.
One of the most haunting. I mean, I guess I saw that when I was 16 or 17, but still. But now, just because I've seen that, I feel like now I have to watch the real one.
Was that before or after the doodle?
Huh? The doodle?
Yeah.
Oh, good question.
My eyelash falling off.
That was after. It was after the doodle. I don't think so. Okay, so what do we want gun laws to be, or?
I think there needs to be a process. There needs to be a process to obtaining one. There needs to be background checks. I think that, you should have to have, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people are going to be mad at me for saying this because they think I go one way or other. I think you should have to have a mental health evaluation. Yeah. That should be conducted by a third party, and then you should be able to take that, and I think you should have to recertify every year. I do. If you.
Y'all might not have seen that, but Becca's hand was creeping into the space bar.
So, everybody is entitled to their own opinion.
Sure.
His opinion's not right or
We
wrong.
made a promise to Ariel. I promised her that we would be nice.
Yeah, but
we're not in the habit of calling people morons or stupid or an idiot for not knowing something or not being educated on something. You kind of lose students if you start off by calling, hey, dumb fuck, Yeah.
One of many concerns that I have in terms of putting limitations on a right is if you apply certain limitations to certain rights in order for you to use them, it is no longer a right, but a privilege, because now the government has these mandates that you have to check off before you can use this now privilege. And so once you start doing that to one right, it opens up the door to then start doing it to other rights. Mm-hmm. Where, we saw your social media post, we didn't quite like what you said, so now you're going to have to go through a government mandated speaking training. Yeah. And you can only use these words and talk about this specific information anytime you want to use your First Amendment right. Mm-hmm. And so then you have to go through these training events, you have to do some type of qualification that allows you to use your First Amendment right or your Fourth Amendment right or whatever the case may be. So it opens up the door for further infringement on further rights. Now, I think that firearms training is absolutely important. Mm-hmm. I would encourage every firearm owner, regardless of their level of experience with firearms, to seek out additional training. Yeah. No matter how good you are, you can always get better. But to have the government mandate it, no, in my opinion, because, again, it sets a level of requirement. In theory, yes, that's a great idea to say they need to have training, they need to have this, they need to go through this in order to have this right. But in the real world, it doesn't help. Same thing with passing a medical check, a mental screening. Mm-hmm. Who is the arbiter of truth with this? You have someone who is slightly anti-gun, who is evaluating you, well, they're already going to be
against you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not the best. Again, on paper, sure, it makes sense, but in the real world, no, and it just creates a very slippery slope.
You want a gun, there's no one's keeping you from owning it. It's just
It's like a car.
It's
Same
like
thing.
a car.
I like the idea of it being kind of like a car in that you have to have the paper stuff, in that you know how to use it, you know the safety rules, you know all the whatever weapons conditions, or maybe not weapons conditions.
So imagine you buy a gun and then somebody requires you to go through a course in order for you to use that firearm. Do you think the government would put together a program that would allow you to keep the gun at home, but then they ask you to promise not to use it until you've received your training? That probably wouldn't happen because the government deals in large scale solutions for a lot of people, so they typically go lowest common denominator. They would keep the gun from you until you're qualified to use it, according to them, and then they would allow you to have said firearm. But that would create an entire class of people, basically everybody, that would not have access to a guaranteed right, the right of self-defense, until a third party says, okay, you're good to go. Which is different from driving. They don't allow you to drive until you get a license, but the difference between driving and self-defense, one's not a right and the other one is.
Also, something else that could be worrisome is when the government sets up, let's say, you need to go through a 60-hour course in order to use your Second Amendment right. And then after 3-4 years, they say, you know what? 60 hours isn't enough. Let's now do 80 hours.
Yeah.
And you can only use your firearm this many times, you know, for training events or whatever the case may be. Or you can go through a lesser hour course, but now you have to continually keep your firearm at this location. So it just creates all sorts of limitations that the government can impose for your safety.
Let's be very clear here. Whenever we talk about a right, a lot of people like to talk about the Second Amendment right being the right to own a gun. The Second Amendment is not about the right to own a gun. It says arms, but that's not what it's really about. It is a right to guarantee you have the ability to defend yourself against a larger, more overwhelming, or more numerous threat to your safety or your person. It's not about a gun. It's about self-defense. It just so happens that firearms, outside of some heavy artillery that the military has, is the most effective way to guarantee your self-defense, along with the copious amounts of training that goes along with it. Every time you hear the Second Amendment is your right to carry a gun, that's not technically true, but it is partially true. It is your right to self-defense, which goes back to 90-pound woman defending herself against a 260-pound linebacker.
Yeah.
So self-defense is the ultimate goal of the Second Amendment. Not necessarily a gun, but a gun is the most effective way at determining and going about defending yourself.
A lot of people think that the Second Amendment, First Amendment, all these other rights are given to you by the Constitution. No, the government does not give you the rights. The Constitution does not give you rights. What the Constitution does is protect your rights that you already have. That's why the Second Amendment doesn't say a person can carry this gun on this day in this location. It doesn't say any of that. The only limitation stated within the Second Amendment applies to government.
Yeah. Think about it like this. What other right do we have enumerated in the Constitution that is as heavily regulated now? Not to the point that you would feel comfortable with, but what is already there. Crazy people with, I want my body to have, you know, just as many, my body's more heavily restricted than the firearm.
Yeah.
You could probably carry your uterus into a fucking government building. I'm pretty sure that's still the fucking case.
I haven't seen a uterus bin outside.
I haven't.
Or a sign that says uteruses are forbidden.
Yeah, exactly.
You should not just carry your uterus around in a box or a purse.
It should be properly encapsulated within your body.
Again, I'm not a doctor. I have studied some medical stuff. So
don't discount the bird law.
Well, if you own it, you probably should. And then the physical, know how to handle it. And then, I don't know.
So did you get your gun inspected every year?
Yes, I wholeheartedly. It's like when I was a recruiter, there was recruiting offices getting shot up during the Iraq War, and I was one of those offices. And so they told everyone that if they had a permit, these are military members in uniform during this time until our office got fortified, they could carry. I watched a guy that had only ever held a gun in the military go out and buy a handgun. And now this guy's running around with a handgun. The minimum, classes, this, that, doesn't go to the range. And I'm like, dude ended up firing a gun in the recruiting office, like desk pop. in the recruiting office because he didn't know how to use it. And so my thing is all for people owning them. I just think that there should have a process to obtain it and like training and certification.
Yeah.
I've known a few people that have had desk pops as well.
I've known a few people that have had desk pops, car pops, street pops.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to punish every American just because old Steve over here had an office pop or old Dylan over here did some stupid shit with his firearm.
Collective punishments only have a place in the military and in school.
Yeah.
And since I'm no longer in the military, and I'm definitely way older than I need to be in school.
Why do you still hang on school stuff?
Well, they have the best candy. Duh.
That's true.
Then I shouldn't be subject to collective punishment for the fucking retarded actions of a few.
Everybody should have training. But if they decide to do some stupid shit with a firearm, that's on them. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that just because you decide to exercise your Second Amendment right, you are free of any responsibility or any type of punishment that might happen because of it. That doesn't mean that at all. You're still going to be held accountable for your actions. And so you might do something really stupid. You're like, oh, well, he shouldn't have had a gun to begin with. Okay, but we're going to let the judicial system fix that process.
People should know how to use it. I don't understand why anyone would get mad at anyone for saying you should know how to use it if you own it.
Yeah, and that's where I land. Look, guns and cars are both things that can kill people pretty easily, and so we want to have some safety checks on who we're giving those to and make sure. Yeah, because if the gun's not inspected, just like a car's emissions might be a problem, or it might not, the lights might not work, and now you're not signaling to people. Like a gun could backfire wrong or something if it's like dirt. Isn't there kind of bad stuff that can happen if it's fucking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For clarification, a gun cannot backfire.
Sure, bad things could happen. But I wouldn't want government inspections to ensure that. No.
Have you ever met a government employee? Again, lowest common denominator.
If you're not
Burn your hand off or
Taking care of it.
You do realize we were government employees at one time, right?
That's why we're not government employees anymore. Duh.
And there are people who, like, I know a lot of car guys, and you can buy collectibles. You're like, I'm not going to drive that car. I'm just collecting it.
Right, so you don't have to get it.
fire that gun. But if you intend on firing it, you should make sure it's serviceable and all that.
And my question is, these school shootings, how are these people even making it that far? Like, I'm all for the gun laws, but I'm all for, like, barricading the hell out of schools.
Well, that's the other thing I was thinking about, because there's two types, right? Because I was thinking about Uvalde, because there's one type.
Uvalde is a fantastic example of people not following their training.
Yep.
They're going to get more into this, and so will we. But I'm just letting you know from the get-go that this is a horrific example. It's a fantastic example, but it's a horrific thing that happened, and we will outline exactly why it was horrific in a very short period of time.
And I would love to see the percentages. One type where it's like a student or something, a disgruntled whatever, and you're shooting your peers and your teachers. But then there's like what I think is pure evil, like Uvalde, where you're like, oh, I'm not in a school right now, but I'm going to walk down the street to the school and like shoot up a bunch of kids that I don't even know.
Sandy Hook, same
Sandy
thing.
Hook, yeah. So in that case, I think maybe some schools are upping security. And then sometimes the school resource officers, I think they're training them better now. But back in the day, it was just like some fat guy.
So I've known a lot of SROs, school resource officers. I wouldn't necessarily trust them with my life.
Usually being stuck in a school means that you did the sheriff a favor and you're looking to just kind of glide your way through the rest of your time, or you're such a fuck up that they want you off the street and you're such a harassment problem that they don't want you in the office.
Yeah.
So they stick you around a bunch of kids.
Yeah, usually an SRO is not, there's exceptions to everything, but usually an SRO is not a member of a SWAT team who receives all sorts of training and is actively looking to stop any potential threats. Usually it's someone who's just there biding their time, sitting in office, and then when bad things happen, they may or may not try and solve that problem.
Parkland!
Yeah. It is better than nothing at all. And oftentimes having a marked unit sitting outside of a school,
or somebody inside the school with a radio.
Can be a deterrent.
Yeah.
By no means should they get rid of all SROs. No, I think they should have more training, and it is a very good option, but it doesn't mean that school is safe.
This is a fantastic time to go into Uvalde because I think they just completely glossed over what happened in Uvalde. There's something called active shooter training. Both me and Baker have gone through it. Both me and Baker have taught active shooter. The most fundamental principle of active shooter training, in other words, shooting at a mall, shooting at a school, any sort of shooting that is happening where time is of the essence, people are just dying left and right, and you don't have a lot of opportunity to pre-plan or get ready to do something because it is happening now and it is a random thing that you cannot predict. The first rule is that whenever you get there, if you're the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, you grab as many people as you're comfortable with. If it's just you and you want to go in, fucking have at it. If you want to wait for another additional person, fucking have at it. But you rush in as quickly as possible to stop the threat as soon as possible. You do not wait for an hour and a half. You do not stack all the cops in the hallways and wait for the shooting to stop. You do not ask your chief, your sheriff, your councilman, your mayor for permission. You go and fuck anybody that tells you that you can't. Mm-hmm. You go, you stop the threat as soon as possible. Uvalde was a horrific example of what cops should do.
Something that Uvalde also showed is that law enforcement is under no obligation to run into a dangerous situation to save your life.
Right.
That's their job. That's the power that they're given. That's responsibility that they take on. But they're under no obligation to put themselves in harm's way to save your life.
Nope.
Uvalde proved that. They just stood around. It's easy for us to say what we would have done because we weren't there. I wouldn't have just been able to stand there because my lieutenant or whoever told me, oh no, just hang tight. And that's where reinforcing these schools, enacting additional security measures, armed guards, teachers who carry, whatever the case may be.
Having lockable doors.
Yeah, is all a benefit to that structure. It sucks that society is in a position now where we have to reinforce all these schools and make them hard targets, not soft targets. Federal buildings, those are all hard targets. So we do it at banks, those are hard targets, so on and so forth. Might as well do it at schools. It sucks that that's what we have to do, but that is what we have to do because of the shift in society. There's a reason why a lot of these school shootings happen in particular areas, or even just mass shootings in general, movie theaters, shopping centers, malls, whatever the case may be. Typically that all happens in areas where gun measures are enacted, whether you cannot carry here, whether it's open carry, concealed carry, whatever the case may be. Again, these people go in there to hurt or kill as many people as possible, and they want to do that without meeting immediate levels of resistance. They're going into areas where most likely they are the only person that is armed. And then that's why they're so successful with their attacks. Again, they're going after the weak gazelle, not the strong gazelle.
School comp, you ain't solving murders at that police department.
Are they giving them guns now? And
Oh yeah,
training them?
they're armed.
Okay, and some people say the teachers should be armed. I feel like that's a lot to ask
All
of
the
these
teacher
teachers.
comedians talk about that, and they say, sometimes I want to.
They might go into this a little bit more. But I'll talk about it right now, or we'll talk about it. What's your opinion on teachers being armed?
If somebody's comfortable with owning a firearm and going through the training to get good at that thing, which they should be going through the training to get much better than the average person that owns a firearm, because they might have to shoot around kids, then I say, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about it too. I think that since it is a right, they should be able to use that right if they want. Now, like you mentioned, because now they're taking on some type of security role, they should receive additional training, whether it's shooting around obstacles, over obstacles, all these different training scenarios. And all you're doing now is just adding more layers of security. You don't necessarily have to bring in an outside security force. You already have a security force inside. The kids should know that there are teachers in the school who carry. You don't have to disclose who it is. And then they should also be involved in some parts of that training. That way the kids know how to react if something like that happens. So in inserting some type of protective measure, training is not a new concept.
Right.
This would just be a newer form of that.
I'm gonna kill all of them. Don't give me a gun because I'll kill them all. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying all the teachers will be armed, but like lots of an armed presence at a school. See, these people are attacking these places because they know their vulnerabilities. That's why they're doing it. Yeah. None of these school shooters, if school shooters started getting smoked on the front lawn, you'd see less school shooters.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But
We'd all
they're
love to
making
go
it
back
in.
to a time when we could not lock up our bicycles or our kids. But at this point, we need to have a well-trained militia at each school, whether that's
Rooftop lasers.
some rooftop, yeah,
Use
something.
AI. You could use AI because then you don't really have to like have an employee. You could just it could detect.
Have the AI shoot who they perceive to be an intruder.
When I lived in Chicago, I used to go to this barber shop, and it was across the street from this big Catholic school. And my barber said, "I'm armed to the teeth in here," and he showed.
I have a hard time believing that guy regularly goes to a barber.
I regularly go to a barber. Usually, about once a year I go to a barber.
That's not regular.
For me, it is.
That's not regular. I'm regular. I poop 2 to 3 times a day.
Okay.
That's
For
regular.
you, that's regular.
No,
for
that's-
other people, that might be.
No.
Yeah.
Nobody ever poops once a year and calls that regular.
They might poop once a day, and that to
Yeah,
them
we're,
is
not,
regular.
we're not talking about once a day. We're talking about once a year.
Your barber
That's not
schedule is
regular.
different than mine. So what's regular to me and what's regular to him is different than what's regular
I think
to
it's
you.
obvious that you go to the barber way more than I do because you have much more to remove than I do.
Yeah, but it would definitely be a cheaper visit for you.
It's super cheap because I cut my own hair. That's super cheap.
Nature cuts your hair.
They just cut the top.
showed me in his back room, and this guy had guns, pistols, everything. And he said, if somebody tries some shit at this school, they got one security guard. And my barber's like, I will rain down hell if somebody starts. My kid goes there. And this dude was prepared because of Uvalde.
He
and
hopes
all,
it happens.
All that
Shit.
stuff. Right across, it's like a straight shot.
Yeah, and the response for that in particular was just not. We're like, oh, we have to wait. We need more information, and then just like slaughterhouse.
I absolutely think that that's a good measure for citizens to take security measures on their own. Something that you have to consider, though, is let's say that situation played out where something horrible happened at the school. He grabbed his guns, he ran to that school, and he tries to interject himself into a situation.
Especially if he hasn't done any sort of training with the
Yeah.
SRO or local law enforcement.
And he inserts him into that situation on very good means and intentions. Unfortunately, his intentions are not known to everyone else. So as soon as law enforcement shows up and they see him going through the school with a gun, chances are they're going to engage him thinking that he is the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to consider. Even if you're concealed carrying and you interject yourself into a situation, be mindful that you could be very quickly labeled as the threat because these individuals who are responding are trying to process the scene immediately, and then they see you with a gun. You might be right, but you might also be wrong. So if that was to happen, that's something you have to weigh your options there, or even have some type of plan. Immediately call 911, tell them, I'm responding to the school, I'm wearing this, I'm going onto this side, this is what I look like. So that way they can hopefully start relaying that information to officers. They're going to most likely stop you, disarm you. That way they can carry out their operation.
If you're a civilian and you want to help in a horrific time like that, your best way of helping is to start collecting people as they come out of the school. Separate people that have seen the shooter from people that have not seen the shooter, get medical aid, start directing ambulances to where they need to go. Let the people that have had, hopefully, a little bit more training than you have in this type of scenario actually do their training without your interference. You might be more highly trained than they are, but if you don't train with them, then you're just as much of a threat to them as the unknown threat of the shooter.
Exactly. If you decide to act, just keep that in mind, that you might be engaged by law enforcement. It doesn't mean that it's because they're right or wrong. If you're doing that, it's going to be your responsibility not only to look for a threat, but to also look for responding law enforcement. That way, as soon as you see them, you can disarm yourself, immediately go into a non-threatening posture, and let them do what they're going to do with you. There's a lot to consider when you talk about this kind of stuff.
It's not just about running in and saving the day because they don't. There's no reason for them to think that you are not just as much of a threat to them as the unknown threat.
And I think that the school shooting issue is a bigger issue than just the gun. I think the gun is one small problem. It's a mental health issue and a lack of trained people at those schools that can handle.
Yeah, and we need our cops to actually be heroes, unlike I think what happened with Uvalde or whatever. It's like, hey guys, if we're gonna give you're allowed to kill people without really any repercussions, people get the book thrown at.
anytime somebody says that cops are allowed to do things without repercussions, know absolutely nothing about the way cops do things.
No. Whether it's a law enforcement shooting or a civilian shooting, you have justifiable homicide that applies to both. Aren't like, oh, you're a cop. Oh yeah, you're good to go. High five. See you later.
The interior standard operating procedure of the department, what federal law says in terms of your ability to enact violence upon another person. There are all kinds of regulations on when a cop can use force on other people.
And if anything, oftentimes they're usually held to a higher standard because they had certain levels of training and were expected to act or react in certain situations that your typical civilian doesn't have.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's a little bit more leniency towards civilians than there are law enforcement.
Them, if they even flick you in the nose, like, then you got to be heroes. That's the deal.
There was a mother that went in and got her son. I don't know if you guys heard about that. Mother showed up, got her way around the police barricade, yanked her kid out of the school, yanked her kid. And then there was other people, like a couple of these like cops that, there was people at the ready, but it was, they need trained people.
Which that goes back to what we said about Uvalde. Yes, it's terrible that the cops were not doing something and keeping the family members away. 100%. That is fucked up. That should have never happened. But if that's not the situation and cops are actually handling a problem, if you go around them, going through another door or an open window, and you start doing something without them knowing it, they could very easily see you as the threat that they're originally hunting.
Yeah.
Don't do that shit, right? No, you're just as likely to get yourself and your child and anybody within 2 feet in either direction of you accidentally shot by the cops because you're not trusting them to do what they need to do. Most cops are not going to be Uvalde. 99% of the time, you're going to have some gung-ho motherfuckers like over in Nashville with old Albury fucking going in there and smoking that bitch right on the fucking spot.
Exactly.
As soon as fucking possible. Do not trust that you know how to solve this problem better than the cops do.
Yeah. And again, it's easy for us to say that because we weren't there in a law enforcement capacity, and we also weren't there as a parent who had children inside.
Yeah.
So just understand, no matter what your actions are, you have to weigh those options. And if you feel that this will allow you to be more successful, I mean, do what you got to do. But just understand
there are consequences.
All right. Is that it?
Yeah.
Are we ready to vote?
Are we ready to vote?
Are you ready, kids?
Okay. In terms of gun shit, who do we think we most align with now? For the Democrats at this.
One of the things with Kamala that they didn't really talk about too much is all of her bullshit statements with guns. One of them was talking about the lawsuit, all that, but also that guns are the number one killer of children in the U.S. Whoa. So she's always talking about how they're the arbiter of truth and you got to stop disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah.
But she's also one of the people who continually puts out disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah.
She wants nothing to do in terms of supporting your Second Amendment. She wants to limit your Second Amendment for your safety. Yeah. That's one of my big issues. There's many, but when it comes to Second Amendment with her.
Point, I think it's a little, I don't know.
I like the background checks, and I like that she's making it harder to obtain the guns. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm all over the map.
Yeah, I think because I side more with the fact that it's a mental health issue.
Yes.
And I think we touched on this in the trans rights in schools thing. Like, actually, every episode, it's just the heart of it is the mentality, mental health, and just not being shitty people.
So one of the things that when he said she's making it harder to obtain the guns that he likes, and I understand what he's saying. I get what he's trying to say. But what I hear when I hear someone say that, they're intentionally making it more difficult for an individual to exercise their individual right.
Right.
It isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
No matter what right it is, it's not a good thing. Yeah. So anytime government or a politician tries to do that, it's not to your benefit.
No.
Maybe work on that, which is why I wanted RFK to be our president.
I mean, does Europe have this problem?
Well, a lot of them don't even have guns. Yeah. But I mean, every now and then they stab each other, but not that much.
I mean, this isn't a problem anywhere else in the world.
I can understand why somebody would say that, especially being an American.
Yeah.
That is not the case. Unless it's talking about only first world nations. Mogadishu is pretty violent.
Yeah.
There are portions of Africa that have had continual civil war going on for Africa, hundreds of years. So he's probably just talking about first world nations.
Yeah.
That's kind of discriminatory to say that this isn't a problem anywhere else. He's kind of dismissing second and third world nations. There's still people living there too, and those people would probably benefit greatly from being able to defend themselves. First world nations would probably benefit greatly from being able to defend themselves. Tokyo in Asia, it's got a high suicide rate. There are almost no guns on the streets. Would you say that they're better off than we are if they have a higher suicide rate than we do? It's kind of that's a silly argument. The United States is wildly different from any other planet, any other group of people on the planet, based on our history of frontierism, moving across the country, only within the past 200 years. We're a very new country, and our Wild West lifestyle or past is still very much in the mentality of the average American, unlike literally anybody else. We're wildly different. You can't compare the United States to any other country on the planet, past, present, and possibly even future.
Yeah. And I think separating gun violence from other violence is kind of silly because violence is violence.
Yeah.
If someone gets stabbed and dies, they're not going to be like, oh, well, thank God I wasn't shot and killed that way.
Yeah.
But violence is violence, regardless if it's gun or knife or bat or anything else. It's still violence. So just because one place has a higher violence with this particular object than this one doesn't mean that it's any better.
Yeah.
There's still violence.
Yeah.
Violence.
Why are you worried about the method of people dying rather than people dying?
Yeah.
That should not be your major concern.
I have been watching some European shows, and I'm like, why doesn't he just shoot him? And I'm like, oh, there's no.
That's boring to watch a TV show.
No, but it's cool. You get to see. I've been
true.
doing. I
Yeah.
started studying
Fencing.
film fight, so it's pretty.
There you go. All right, Jason, where can people find you?
You can find me on the internet at Poopy Turds McGee on Instagram, Poopy Turds McGee 1.5 on TikTok, and on YouTube too.
Oh shit!
Oh.
I was trying to make it smooth.
Should we give that? You can give it. It won't hurt my feelings. But
What is
I'll
that?
give it.
I don't know.
It's a pen. But
I didn't
it's
know your
also
name was
Poopy Turds McGee.
Poopy Turds
Poopy
McGee.
Turds McGee. It's so cute. This is America. It's in the shitter.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
doing this.
I think we discussed pretty much everything.
I think,
We could have gone more in depth.
we could have gone more in depth. We probably should have gone less in depth
Yeah, probably.
for the sake of battery and attention span of the
Yeah.
average viewer.
Yeah.
But anybody that's truly interested in this is going to want to hear how both sides of these things happen. So
Yeah.
that's why we're doing this.
And also, big thank you to them for
Yeah.
giving us this opportunity to respond to their video. You'll find the link to their full video in the information section of our video, so be sure to go check that out.
And in the end card.
The offer stands to any three individuals in this video. If they want to come out here and do some training, you're more welcome to come out here, and we'll shoot it on up on the range.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm kind of surprised that all the batteries have lasted this long. So,
My battery's dead. I've been out of coffee for a while.
so you guys have a good day. Check out the rest of our stuff